Hello everyone. Got 10 funny clean jokes for you today. So a dog walks into a bar and orders a pint of beer and a ham sandwich. The barman looks at him and says, "Hang on. You're a dog. I see your eyes are working," replies the dog. "And you can talk," exclaims the barman. "I see your ears are working, too," says the dog. "Now if you don't mind, can I have my beer and my sandwich, please?" "Certainly. Sorry about that," says the barman as he pulls the dog's pint. "It's just we don't get many dogs in this pub." "What are you doing round this way?" "I'm working on the building site across the road," explains the dog. "I'm a plasterer." The flabbergasted barman cannot believe the dog and wants to learn more, but takes the hint when the dog pulls out a newspaper from his bag and proceeds to read it. So, the dog reads his paper, drinks his beer, eats his sandwich, bids the barman good day and leaves. The same thing happens for 2 weeks. Then one day the circus comes to town. The ringmaster comes into the pub for a pint, and the barman says to him, "You're with the circus, aren't you? Well, I know this dog that could be just brilliant in your circus. He talks, drinks beer, eats sandwiches, reads the newspaper, and everything. Sounds marvelous," says the ringmaster, handing over his business card. "Get him to give me a call." The next day, when the dog comes into the pub, the barman says, "Hey, Mr. Dog, I reckon I can line you up with a top job, paying really good money. I'm always looking for the next job," says the dog. "Where is it?" "At the circus," says the barman. "The circus," repeats the dog. "That's right," replies the barman. "The circus." The dog asks again, "With the big tent?" "Yeah," the barman replies. "With all the animals who live in cages, and performers who live in caravans," says the dog. "Of course," the barman replies. "And the tent has canvas sides and a big canvas roof with a hole in the middle," persists the dog. "That's right," says the barman. The dog shakes his head in amazement and says, "Why in the world would they want a plasterer?" One day, a man was driving down a rural road when he suddenly veered off the road and into a ditch. Fortunately, a farmer happened to be nearby and came to his aid. The farmer hitched his horse, Buddy, up to the car and tried to get the horse to pull the car out of the ditch. "Pull, Nellie, pull," he shouted, but Buddy didn't budge. "Pull, Buster, pull," he yelled, but still, Buddy didn't move. "Pull, Coca, pull," he called out, but the horse remained unmoved. Finally, the farmer said, "Pull, Buddy, pull," and the horse was able to successfully drag the car out of the ditch. The motorist, curious about why the farmer had been calling his horse by the wrong name, asked him about. The farmer explained that Buddy was actually blind and that if he thought he was the only one pulling, he wouldn't even try. So a monocle walks into a bar. After a few drinks, he starts to feel pretty good and a little uncoordinated. He reaches for a cigarette, but the bartender stops him. "Sorry, buddy, but due to city ordinances, we don't allow smoking in here. You have to step outside to smoke." So the monocle hops off the bar stool and grabs his cigarettes to head outside. Meanwhile, a second monocle emerges from the bathroom. They bump into each other as they cross paths and fall to the floor, hopelessly entangled. They try to get free, but the more they struggle, the more tangled they become. The bartender looks down on this travesty and shakes his head. "Hey, you two," he shouts, "stop making spectacles of yourselves." So a beautiful young woman was on a flight from Ireland to another destination. She was seated next to a kind and pious priest and decided to ask him for a favor. The young woman turned to the priest and said, "Father, may I ask a favor?" The priest, being a man of faith and compassion, replied, "Of course, child. What may I do for you?" The woman then explained her predicament. She had purchased an expensive hair dryer for her mother's birthday and was afraid that it would be confiscated by customs because it was over the limit. She asked the priest if he would carry it through customs for her and hide it under his robes. The priest was hesitant at first, as he did not want to lie. But the young woman assured him that with his honest face, no one would question him. So, when they arrived at customs, the priest went first. The customs official asked the priest if he had anything to declare, and the priest replied, "From the top of my head down to my waist, I have nothing to declare." The official, taken aback by the priest's strange answer, asked, "And what do you have to declare from your waist to the floor?" The priest then delivered the punchline with a twinkle in his eye. "I have a marvelous instrument designed to be used on a woman, which is, to date, unused." The customs official burst into laughter and said, "Go ahead, Father. Next, please." So a lost dog strays into a jungle. A lion sees this from a distance and says with caution, "This guy looks edible. Never seen his kind before." So the lion starts rushing towards the dog with menace. The dog notices and starts to panic, but as he's about to run, he sees some bones next to him and gets an idea and says loudly, "That was some good lion meat." The lion abruptly stops and says, "Whoa, this guy seems tougher than he looks. I better leave while I can." Over by the treetop, a monkey witnessed everything. Evidently, the monkey realizes that he can benefit from this situation by telling the lion and getting something in return. So the monkey proceeds to tell the lion what really happened, and the lion says angrily, "Get on my back. We'll get him together." So they start rushing back to the dog. The dog sees them and realizes what happened and starts to panic even more. He then gets another idea and shouts, "Where the hell is that monkey? I told him to bring me another lion an hour ago." So Carl is in the 10th year of a life sentence when he gets a new cellmate, Jim. They're taking some time to size Jim up and decide that he can trust him. Carl tells Jim about his plan to escape. You see, Carl says, "For the first 5 years I was inside. I trained my digestive system to follow my command. Now I can eat something and it comes out broken down into its components." Jim is skeptical, but intrigued. Carl continues, "For the last 5 years, I've been swallowing pieces off my uniform. It's perfect, because the guards just think it's rats chewing on it." So Jim asks, "Well, what does that have to do with me? How can I help?" Carl says, "Well, the pieces of fabric come out as individual fibers. I figure by this time next year, we'll have enough to fashion enough rope to get over the wall. I just need you to tie the fibers." Jim, disgusted, says, "You have got to be kidding me." And Carl says, "I shit you not." So Dave was bragging to his boss one day, "You know, I know everyone there is to know. Just name someone, anyone, and I know them." Tired of his boasting, his boss called his bluff. "Okay, Dave, how about Tom Cruise?" "No dramas, boss. Tom and I are old friends, and I can prove it." So Dave and his boss fly out to Hollywood and knock on Tom Cruise's door. And Tom Cruise shouts, "Dave, what's happening? Great to see you. Come on in for a beer." Although impressed, Dave's boss is still skeptical. After they leave Cruise's house, he tells Dave that he thinks him knowing Cruise was just lucky. No, just name anyone else," Dave says. "President Obama." His boss quickly retorts. "Yup," Dave says, "Old buddies, let's fly out to Washington," and off they go. At the White House, Obama spots Dave on the tour and motions him and his boss over, saying, "Dave, what a surprise. I was just on my way to a meeting, but you and your friend come on in and let's have a beer first and catch up." Well, The boss is very shaken by now, but still not totally convinced. After they leave the White House grounds, he expresses his doubts to Dave, who again implores him to name anyone else. Pope Francis, his boss, replies. "Sure," says Dave. "I've known the Pope for years." So off they fly to Rome. Dave and his boss are assembled with the masses at the Vatican St. Peter's Square when Dave says, "This will never work. I can't catch the Pope's eye among all these people. Tell you what, I know all the guards, so let me just go upstairs and I'll come out on the balcony with the Pope." He disappears into the crowd headed towards the Vatican. Sure enough, half an hour later Dave emerges with the Pope on the balcony. But by the time Dave returns, he finds that his boss has had a heart attack and is surrounded by paramedics. Making his way to his boss' side, Dave asks him what happened. His boss looks up and says, "It was the final straw. You and the Pope came out onto the balcony and the man next to me said, 'Who the hell is that on the balcony with Dave?'" So as a butcher is shooing a dog from his shop, he sees a $10 and a note in his mouth, reading, "5 lamb chops, please." Amazed, he takes the money, puts a bag of chops in the dog's mouth, and quickly closes the shop. He follows the dog and watches him wait for a green light, look both ways, and trot across the road to a bus stop. The dog checks the timetable and sits on the bench. When a bus arrives, he walks around to the front and looks at the number, then boards the bus. The butcher follows, dumbstruck. As the bus travels out into the suburbs, the dog takes in the scenery. After a while, he stands on his back paws to push the stop bell. Then the butcher follows him off. The dog runs up to a house and drops his bag on the step. He goes back down the path, takes a big run, and throws himself whap against the door. He does this again and again. No answer. So he jumps on a wall, walks around the garden, beats his head against a window, jumps off, and waits at the front door. A big guy opens it and starts cursing and shouting at the dog. The butcher runs up and screams at the guy, "What the hell are you doing? This dog's a genius." The owner responds, "Genius, my ass. It's the second time this week he's forgotten his keys." So a cop is waiting behind a billboard in the desert. He's just chilling in his car waiting for speeders to ticket when all of a sudden, a man drives by at under the speed limit. The cop is about to let him pass, but then he sees the man has, of all things, a penguin in his shotgun seat. The cop revs up his motorcycle, pulls the man over, steps off the motorcycle and asks the man, "Sir, are you aware why I pulled you over?" The man says, "No, officer. Was I speeding?" "Well, you were under the speed limit. But I couldn't help but notice you have a penguin in your shotgun seat." "Oh, it's all right, officer. He's my emotional support animal." The officer chuckles and says, "I understand you needing an emotional support animal, but I'm going to have to ask you to take your penguin to the zoo." The man says okay and drives off. The next day, same routine for the cop. He's relaxing behind his billboard when, sure enough, the man drives by with his penguin in the shotgun seat. So the officer revs up his bike, pulls the man over, walks over and asks him, "Sir, didn't I pull you over the other day?" "Why, yes, officer. I believe I asked you to take your penguin to the zoo." "Yes, you did, officer." The officer pinched his brow. "So why is he here?" "Well, now I'm taking him to the movies." So one day, a poor man, who had only one piece of bread to eat, was walking past a restaurant. There was a large pot of soup on the table. The poor man held his bread over the soup, so the steam from the soup went into the bread and gave it a good smell. Then he ate the bread. The restaurant owner was very angry at this, and he asked the man for money. in exchange for the steam from the soup. The poor man had no money, so the restaurant owner took him to Nasreddin, who was a judge at that time. Nasreddin thought about the case for a little while, then he took some money from his pocket. He held the coins next to the restaurant owner's ear and shook them so that they made a jingling noise. "What was that?" asked the restaurant owner. "That was payment for you," answered Nasreddin. "What do you mean?" "That was just the sound of coins," protested the restaurant owner. "The sound of the coins is payment for the smell of the soup," answered Nasreddin. "Now go back to your restaurant."